All right, so today we're diving into something that's really been bugging me.
Oh, yeah.
Like Australia, this massive continent. It's
Sure.
almost as big as the US,
Yeah.
but it's 95% empty.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous, stunning scenery, but like, where is everyone?
Right.
So we're going to use this really cool YouTube video by Gaurav Thakur to like try and figure this out.
I love that guy.
Yeah, and it goes into like all the history, the geography,
Yeah.
even the politics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that have shaped Australia.
Really interesting.
Yeah, so it's way more than just like those outback pictures you see.
Definitely.
So the video starts way back,
Okay.
talking about the Aboriginal population who were thriving there for like 65,000 years
Wow.
before Europeans even showed up.
Yeah.
And their connection to the land was just so different.
Oh, yeah.
Like they didn't think they owned it.
Mm.
They were like caretakers.
Custodians.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really important point.
It is.
Because, it really contrasts with how the British saw it when they arrived in 1788.
Oh, right. The whole Terra Nullius thing.
A land belonging to no one.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And that idea, unfortunately, set the stage for centuries of conflict and dispossession.
Yeah, it wasn't just an idea either.
Right. It had actual legal implications
Right.
that echoed, like, globally even.
Really?
Yeah, terra nullius was used all over the place to justify a colonization,
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way.
often just completely ignoring the indigenous populations that were already there.
It's crazy how often that happens.
Yeah.
So the British, they established this penal colony starting in 1788
Right.
and displaced the Aboriginal people from their land.
Yeah. The video actually draws a really interesting parallel
Oh,
with British colonialism in India,
oh wow.
like forced labor,
Right.
resource exploitation.
It's like a pattern.
It is, sadly.
Yeah, it's a tragic one.
It really is.
And then on top of all that, there's the diseases.
Right.
The video talks about how smallpox and measles, things Europeans brought with them,
Yeah.
just ravaged the Aboriginal population.
They had no immunity.
It's awful.
And what's even worse is that the British, they knew some medicine, right?
Yeah.
But they pretty much withheld treatment.
Wow.
Like in Sydney alone, 50% of the indigenous population died within a year.
That's unbelievable.
It really makes you question the ethics of it all.
Yeah.
Basic care could have saved so many lives.
It's just heartbreaking.
Instead, disease became another weapon in a way
Oh, yeah. Another way to take their land.
to weaken them,
Right.
disrupt their communities.
The video then talks about how fencing off land made things even worse.
Right, cutting off access to their traditional hunting grounds.
Right, their food sources.
Exactly.
And that led to a century of warfare.
It's crazy to think about.
It is.
By 1900, the Aboriginal population was decimated.
How many were left?
Estimates are between 30,000 and 75,000.
That's devastating.
Imagine that a population that had thrived for so long reduced to less than an average Indian town today.
It's hard to even comprehend.
It really highlights the true human cost of colonization.
Yeah, for sure. And then you have the World Wars.
Right.
Australia, even though it was so far away, sent a huge number of men to fight,
Including a lot of Aboriginal soldiers.
which must have further depleted the population.
Yeah, and especially considering how small it already was.
Right. And then right after the wars,
Yeah.
the White Australia policy comes into play.
The Immigration Restriction Act of 1901.
Right. Aimed at keeping non-white people out.
Ensuring British dominance.
Wow. It's like one thing after another.
It really is.
No wonder native Australians make up such a small percentage of the population today.
Just 3.8%.
The emptiness we see in Australia, it's not just about the space.
No.
It's the result of this tragic history.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that demographics, they're not just numbers.
Right.
They tell a story.
They do.
A story of human experiences, triumphs, and in this case, immense suffering.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about all this devastating history, but the video doesn't stop there.
No.
It goes on to talk about the actual geography of Australia and how tough it is to live there.
Yeah, it's not all just sunshine and beaches.
Right, right.
Like some postcards would have you believe.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful country, but it's harsh too.
So the video uses these really amazing visuals
Yeah.
to show you the three main landforms.
Okay.
You've got the Western Plateau, which is basically just a giant desert.
Right.
And then there's the Central Lowlands with that super salty water.
Yeah.
And then finally you have the Eastern Highlands.
Which are mostly mountains.
Yeah, with very little farmable land.
So yeah, that makes large chunks of Australia really hard to live in
Like the environment itself is a barrier.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And then the video goes on to explain how Australia's location
Mm-hmm.
and its unique features
Yeah.
create these like crazy weather patterns.
Right.
Like, did you know that because of where Australia is,
Hmm.
the southern part doesn't get enough warm water to make clouds?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and without big mountain ranges to hold those clouds, right? It hardly rains over something like 70% of the country.
That's a lot.
It is, yeah. So that means drought is always a problem.
Yeah. And that obviously has a huge impact on farming.
Right. Like in 2017,
Yeah.
Queensland, which is a big state, was declared a drought state.
Wow.
So you can imagine how hard it is to survive out there.
Yeah, and it's only going to get worse with climate change.
Right, right.
And then you've got the whole problem of salty water in the central lowlands.
I remember learning a bit about this back in school,
Yeah.
but the video does a much better job of explaining it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, the rocks in the soil there are naturally salty.
Okay.
And as they erode, that salt ends up in the water.
So you can't drink it.
Nope.
Yeah.
And you can't use it for farming either.
So between the lack of rain and the salty water,
Yeah.
those areas are just incredibly difficult for people to live in.
Wild, right?
You know what's interesting, though?
What's that?
Australia is actually a leader in desalination technology.
What's that?
It's where they try to remove the salt from the water.
Oh, wow. So they can actually use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see how people come up with solutions
It
to
is.
these really tough environmental challenges.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, it seems like all these things,
Yeah.
the climate and the geography,
Mm-hmm.
they all force people to live on the coast.
Right. The eastern coast has a much more livable climate,
Right.
and they have access to fresh water.
So that's where all the big cities are.
Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane.
Exactly. But even those places,
Yeah.
they're facing new problems with climate change.
Oh, absolutely.
The video mentions how Australia is already seeing
Mm.
like way more intense droughts and floods and cyclones.
All right.
And with sea levels rising,
Yeah.
aren't those coastal cities going to be in big trouble?
Oh, they're incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Coastal erosion, more flooding,
Right.
salt water getting into the fresh water supplies.
So many problems.
Millions of people could be displaced.
It's pretty scary.
It is a serious concern.
But the video also says that Australia's geography might actually hold some solutions.
Really?
Yeah, like all those deserts. Well, they're
Mhm.
bad for people.
Yeah.
They're perfect for solar energy.
Oh, wow.
Australia gets so much sun,
It does.
so they can actually turn that weakness into a strength.
Exactly. Imagine those vast deserts covered in solar panels,
It's kind of mind-blowing.
powering the whole country.
Right.
Of course, there are challenges,
Oh, yeah.
like how to actually harness all that energy and get it to where it's needed.
Right.
But the potential is huge.
Yeah, and the video also mentioned that Australia is already really good at managing water.
Yeah, they have some very advanced desalination and conservation techniques.
Right, which will be even more important as fresh water gets harder to find.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like that saying,
Yeah.
necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Australia is really on the cutting edge of finding solutions to these problems.
And those solutions could help other parts of the world too.
That's right.
Okay, so we've talked about the history, the geography, the climate,
Yeah.
but there's one more thing I want to touch on.
Okay.
The video briefly mentions the urban-rural divide.
Ah, yes. The fact that most people live in those few big cities.
It's pretty stark, right?
It is.
Most of the country is empty,
Mm-hmm.
and the cities are packed.
It's clear that the lack of jobs and infrastructure in rural Australia
Yeah.
is pushing people towards the cities.
And that creates a whole bunch of new problems.
Right. Social problems, economic problems.
How do you encourage people to live in the outback
Yeah.
while also protecting the environment?
It's a tough question.
It is. It's not just about filling up the empty space.
No, it's about finding a balance.
Exactly.
Creating a society that thrives across the whole continent.
It's a challenge for Australia, but honestly,
Yeah,
it's a challenge for a lot of countries.
it is.
So finding solutions that work in Australia
Right.
could really help the rest of the world too.
Absolutely.
It's amazing, isn't it?
What is?
Just thinking about all the, how much we've talked about,
Mm-hmm.
it really makes me think about that Aboriginal idea of custodianship.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about it earlier.
Right.
It just seems like such a different way of looking at things.
It is. Like, what if more people thought that way?
Yeah, not just in Australia, but everywhere.
Exactly. Like, instead of just trying to fill up all the empty space,
Right.
we thought about how to live within that space.
And how to live sustainably too.
Absolutely.
And the video did mention
Yeah.
how valuable Aboriginal knowledge could be
Oh, yeah.
for like dealing with climate change and stuff.
Right. Like, these people have lived in harmony with this land for
Mhm.
thousands of years.
They know how it works.
They do. They have so much knowledge.
On sustainable living,
Yeah.
managing the land,
Mm-hmm.
conserving water.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and understanding how the whole ecosystem works.
It's a shame we don't pay more attention to that,
I know, right?
especially with all the problems we're facing now.
It's like we're trying to reinvent the wheel
Yeah.
when the answers might have been there all along.
It's about recognizing that different cultures,
Yeah.
they have different ways of knowing things,
Right.
and those ways of knowing can be incredibly valuable.
Especially now.
Yeah,
This deep dive has been quite a journey.
it has, hasn't it?
We've learned so much.
We've gone from the history of colonization
Mm-hmm.
to the challenges of climate change.
And everything in between.
It's clear that Australia, it's a unique and complex country,
It is.
shaped by so many different forces.
And the effects of the past
Yeah,
are still being felt today.
in everything from demographics.
To the way people live.
Absolutely.
But I think amidst all the challenges,
Yeah.
there's also a sense of hope.
There is, definitely.
Like people are starting to realize
Mm-hmm.
that things need to change.
Right. We need reconciliation.
Yeah.
We need sustainable development
We need to listen to everyone.
to all the different voices
Exact.
to create a better future.
It feels like Australia is at a crossroads.
It does.
Like they're facing some really big questions.
About who they are
Yeah.
and what they want their future to look like.
But those questions are also opportunities.
They are.
A chance to learn from the past.
To do things differently.
To build something new.
Something better.
Well, we've covered a lot today, haven't we?
We have. Yeah.
From the tragic history
Mm-hmm.
to the incredible potential.
It's been quite a deep dive.
It has. But before we go,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with one last thought.
Okay.
What role do you think each of us can play in shaping a better future?
That's a big question,
It is.
but it's an important
For
one.
Australia,
And for the world.
it's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. By the scale of it all.
But change starts with each of us.
It does.
So educate yourselves.
Be open to new ideas.
And thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Australia.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.